I was still in college when this disturbing experience happened to me. I was broke, always looking for new adventures, and thought it would be fun to travel alone to Paris during a short break. It wasn't a fancy trip or anything like that. I booked the cheapest small motel I could find. It wasn't horrible, since it was expensive enough to seem okay, but the place was in a really sketchy area. I didn't like it, but I figured it would be fine for a few days. The first night was uneventful. I was tired from the trip, so I stayed in, watched whatever was on TV, and went to bed early. The second day, I went out to explore, and when I got back to the motel in the afternoon, I met this guy. He was about my age, said he was also staying there. He started talking to me out of nowhere, just casual stuff about traveling, the city, where I was from. But something about him made me uncomfortable. I couldn't really explain it, but he gave me weird, creep vibes. My gut was telling me something wasn't right. I made up an excuse to leave the conversation and headed out again. I wanted to enjoy the evening in the city, get some fresh air, and stay away from that motel as long as possible. I walked around, grabbed something to eat, and tried to shake off the weird feeling. When I came back to my room later that night, the door was still locked, but when I went inside, my clothes were all over the floor. My bag was open. I checked everything and nothing seemed to be missing, but someone had clearly been in there. It freaked me out. I went straight down to the front desk to complain. The woman working there was old, sitting behind the counter, busy filing her nails like she didn't have a care in the world. I told her what happened, but she just gave me this side-eye look and said she didn't know what I was talking about. No apology, no checking the cameras, nothing. It made me even angrier. On my way back upstairs, I nearly jumped out of my skin because that same guy was standing right outside my room. He looked at me like it was no big deal and said, "Aren't you going to invite me to spend the night with you?" Like it was normal. I told him to leave or I'd call the police. He didn't move. I panicked and ran downstairs to the front desk again. The woman was still there, acting like none of this was strange. I told her what happened, and all she said was, "Just do what he said. He's a nice boy." That's when I knew I had to get out of there. I grabbed my bag, didn't bother to check anything else, and ran to the nearest bus station. I didn't even know where the buses were going. I just wanted to be somewhere crowded, somewhere with people around. I felt like someone was following me. My heart wouldn't stop racing. I called the police from there. When the police arrived, I thought they'd help me. But instead, the old lady at the front desk told them I had broken the TV in my room and refused to pay for it, and that I called the police to avoid paying. To make it worse, that guy. Turned out he was her son. The police didn't care about my side. They believed them. I had no choice. I paid for the so-called damage and checked out right then. It was the most terrifying night of my life. I didn't sleep until I was safely at a new hotel the next day. Looking back, I'm just glad I left when I did. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if I stayed. I've always liked traveling alone. It gives me time to disconnect, clear my head, and just be somewhere new without any pressure. A couple of years ago, I booked a solo trip to Morocco. I stayed in Marrakech for a few days, then decided to head out to a small village nearby to see the Atlas Mountains. I wasn't looking for anything too adventurous, just peace, quiet, and beautiful scenery. The village was small, quiet, and surrounded by nature. I checked into this nice little Berber inn. It was simple, but clean, and the people there were polite. I spent my time walking around, sitting by the hills, and eating at small local restaurants in the center of the village. One evening, while having dinner at a restaurant, I met a group of 3 young guys. They were foreigners too, probably in their mid-20s. They seemed friendly, easygoing, and we started chatting. We talked about traveling, food, and the usual stuff you share with strangers on the road. One of them mentioned they were planning a hike the next day in the area. He invited me to join them. I wasn't much of a hiker. I was there to relax, not climb mountains. So I politely refused. But they insisted. They kept saying it would be fun, nothing too serious, just a day trip. They seemed all right, and I did want to try something new, so I finally agreed. We set a time to meet the next morning. The next day, around the agreed time, I met them by the restaurant. The hike started easy. We walked, talked, and laughed. The trail was nice, and the weather was perfect. As we moved deeper into the area, I started noticing that there weren't any other people around. It felt strange, because I expected to see at least a few locals or other tourists. One of them noticed me looking around and told me he knew the area well. He said we were taking a shortcut. I didn't say much, but something didn't feel right. We stopped for lunch at a quiet spot. They had brought food, and we sat down to eat. After that, things changed. They stopped talking completely. I tried asking them a couple of questions, but they didn't answer. I thought maybe they were tired, so I stayed quiet and just kept walking. Around 6 p.m, they stopped in this isolated spot surrounded by trees. There was nothing else around. No houses, no paths, no people. They started unpacking tents and getting ready to camp there. That's when I told them I didn't feel good and wanted to head back to the inn. One of them smirked at me and said, "It's too late now." Their faces didn't look friendly anymore. The easygoing, cheerful attitude from earlier was gone. I felt a knot in my stomach. I reached into my pocket to grab my phone, planning to call the police or someone from the village. One of them grabbed it from my hand and smashed it on a rock until it broke into pieces. They all started laughing. Then one of them pulled out a hammer from his bag and told me to run. He said they wanted to play a game. I didn't hesitate. I took off running deeper into the trees. I didn't look back. I just ran, dodging branches and rocks, my heart racing. After a while, I couldn't hear footsteps behind me anymore. I didn't know if they were still chasing me or not. I hid behind a tree and stayed there the whole night, too scared to move. When the sky started to lighten, I finally left my hiding spot. I was lost, hungry, and terrified. I wandered around until I ran into a group of local villagers. They didn't speak my language, but I think they understood that I was lost and scared. They led me back toward the center of the village. I went straight to the police and told them everything, but it didn't help. I barely knew anything about those guys. The names they gave me were probably fake, and I had no idea where they were staying. The area attracted a lot of tourists, and nobody could trace them with what little I had. I don't know what their real plan was. Maybe they just wanted to scare me, or maybe it could have been worse. I think about it sometimes. Ever since then, I've been cautious about who I trust while traveling. I still travel alone, but I keep my distance now. I've always wanted to travel. Growing up, I'd see pictures of faraway places in magazines and dream of seeing them myself one day. By the time I saved enough to make it happen, I decided Egypt would be my first trip abroad. Most of the journey was amazing. Historic landmarks, incredible food, and meeting kind people along the way. But my last stop in Cairo left me with a memory I'd rather forget. I'd planned to spend my final few days in Cairo. I had a hotel booked and was excited to explore the bustling streets and taste the beautiful food. But things started to go wrong as soon as I arrived. The hotel cancelled my reservation out of the blue and refunded my payment. There was no explanation. Suddenly, I found myself in a foreign city with nowhere to stay. It was the 90s, so I couldn't just check an app or website to book something new. I had to find a place the old-fashioned way, walking around and asking at hotels. Most of the places I tried were fully booked. After hours of searching, I stumbled upon a small motel. It looked run down, but I was desperate. The woman at the front desk greeted me and said they had only one room left on the 3rd floor. She didn't give me much of a choice, and I was too tired to argue. I noticed a lot of the rooms seemed empty though. When I asked about it, she smiled and said the guests hadn't arrived yet. Something about her answer didn't sit right with me, but I was too exhausted to think much about it. The motel didn't have an elevator, so I had to climb 3 flights of creaky stairs to reach my room. By the time I got there, I was completely drained. The room was basic, just a bed, a small dresser, and a phone. The air felt heavy, like the room hadn't been aired out in weeks, but I didn't care. I collapsed on the bed and fell asleep for a while. Later, I woke up feeling a bit better and decided to go out for dinner. When I got back, there was a man at the front desk instead of the woman I'd seen earlier. Something about him made me uneasy. He stared at me for a moment before giving a stiff smile. I quickly said hello and headed upstairs, but I felt like he was watching me the whole time. As I climbed the dimly lit stairs, I noticed how quiet the motel was. All the rooms were closed, and the faint yellow light barely lit the hallway. I felt exposed. My footsteps echoed as I walked to my door, and just as I reached it, I sensed someone behind me. I turned, and there he was, the man from the front desk. He was holding a cup. He smiled awkwardly and, in broken English, said it was a welcome gift from the motel. He insisted I take it and try it right away. My stomach churned. Something felt wrong, but I didn't want to upset him, so I thanked him and took the cup to my room. I locked the door and slid a chair under the handle for extra security. The juice sat on the dresser untouched. I was almost certain it wasn't safe to drink. I couldn't relax. The uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. I tried to sleep, but kept jolting awake at every sound. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. They were slow and deliberate. Then I heard whispers, male voices, low and indistinct. My heart raced. I reached for the phone, but it didn't work. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want them to think I was asleep, so I made a point of moving around, hoping they'd hear me. After a few minutes, the whispers stopped, and I heard footsteps moving back down the stairs. I stayed awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the door until morning. As soon as the sun came up, I grabbed my bag and left the room. My hands were shaking as I made my way down the stairs. I half expected someone to jump out at me, but the lobby was empty. I walked out without looking back, vowing never to stay in a motel again. If I had to sleep at a train station in the future, I would. Anything would be better than that night. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. It really helps and motivates me to keep creating more videos for you. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.